All right. Welcome everybody. Welcome to our webinar this week, our WhyTry hosted webinar. The webinar we're going to be doing today is kind of a continuation of the discussion we started last week. We got a really strong response, and we shared a lot of great ideas, but we definitely didn't cover everything. And what we wanted to do is continue the discussion and bring in a couple of experts that are good friends of our organization that could maybe speak a little bit more to this discussion. So today we're going to be discussing tools and strategies to engage students and motivate attendance during COVID-19. It's a challenge, I think, that's impacting all of us as educators and mental health professionals and support and everybody that's here. And so we are thrilled today to be joined by people I genuinely consider experts in this. Now, a couple of you complimented us on the music coming in. I have to tell you, those were user-generated songs. Last week, we talked a lot about music, and I gave out my email address and asked you to flood it with song recommendations for a playlist, and you did not disappoint. We'll play that more on the way out. But I want to get into it now. I want to introduce our panelists so that we can jump right into the discussion. We are thrilled today to be joined by a couple people that have become genuinely really good friends of our organization and people that we consider to be experts in their fields, and we're thrilled to have their experience and perspective with us today. So first, I'm going to introduce Mr. Richard Kerry Thompson. Richard Kerry Thompson, aka Mr. T, aka RKT, is a visionary advocate and charismatic leader. Demonstrated expertise in the areas of at-risk students, online learning, and seat time waiver for K-12 students. He's focused on improving achievement outcomes, particularly with students identified as at risk within the alternative ed world as well as non-traditional settings. Richard, welcome. We're grateful to have you.
It's my honor to be here, and hello to everybody out there. Thank you for taking your time to join us, and thanks for affording me the opportunity to be part of this conversation.
But next we have Miss Ashley Wright. Ashley is a passionate educator and student advocate. She currently works as a school counselor in Conroe ISD, Texas. She's been an educator for the past 13 years and is currently a counselor in an elementary school. Let me make sure. She recently received the 2019 Elementary School Counselor of the Year for Texas School Counselor Association, serving on the TSCA board, and is an emerging leader and just absolute expert in this field, one of my favorite humans alive. Last but not least, she loves school counseling. Welcome, Ashley. Thrilled to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
And then we have, certainly last but not least, Mr. Corey Anderson. Corey spent nearly 2 decades as an educator, beginning as a teacher and then as an administrator. He's been an assistant principal at a middle school and has served as a principal at 2 different elementary schools. He pioneered and started one of 2 public STEM programs in the state of Utah, helped consult with the State Office of Education on creating STEM standards for schools that would eventually be adopted by the STEM Action Center. He's overseen behavior units, led his school in implementing social emotional programs and STEM activities. He joined the WhyTry organization in 2019 as a trainer and director of curriculum development after using its social emotional tools for close to a decade in administrative duties. Corey, welcome. Thrilled to have you on. Thrilled to have you as a colleague here in the world of WhyTry.
Always happy to be here.
And then I am Jason Johnson. I'm the one you see on here often. I'll be doing the job of moderator today, try to keep the conversation going. My background is I'm a school psychologist. I was published on the topic of adolescent resilience. Ended up coming over to the WhyTry organization about 5 years ago, and it's just been an awesome experience to be able to collaborate with educators and mental health professionals and corrections experts throughout the country. I love that I get to expand my network of friends. I feel like on a daily, weekly basis. So I want to get right into it and get the discussion going. And what I thought we could maybe do is just, so right now we're going to be talking specifically about tips and strategies and tools to try to help engage and motivate students during this difficult pandemic circumstance that we're in. And so I thought I could maybe go right to the current practitioners right now and start with them and just ask Ashley and Richard, what are you doing right now to help engage students that's working? Maybe we could start with Ashley and then hear from Richard after.
Okay, so I know I know this year is hard, so let me just say this. So I will say, like I always say to Jason, like we're still learning the whole grooves of just being virtual. And it's a lot. So if anything, the first thing that I pride my staff and my school and my principal on is just having empathy and just being just very effective communication. So just reaching out to our parents. So I know for starters, what we're doing is making that constant reassurance and checking in on our parents just to see how things are going, seeing what technology hassles that they're having, how can we assist. And then another strategy is just making sure that like anytime like we're doing, and I don't know if like, I'm pretty sure we'll go further in depth throughout the webinar, but just making sure that any lesson, like lessons are, readily available, and making sure that the kids are able to connect and see their teachers. Because I know it's been really hard trying to connect with our virtual learners and trying to teach our teachers all the aspects of technology just like that. So every single month, what my campus is doing is having someone come from our technology department in our district come and check on our teachers emotionally with technology, and is providing all these innovative tools and techniques and strategies just to help keep them uplifted and keep them engaged with students. If they're finding out that several of them, aren't turning on their videos or are seeming really bummed out, I can honestly say, I'm going to brag on my campus. When I go into classrooms and I'm watching, our campus is actually doing hybrid. So they have double the load. They're doing face-to-face and they are doing hybrid, and they're teaching at the same time. It is very taxing. But I just love, I'm just gonna say that with our teachers at our campus, they're just overly engaged. They're like still doing like the cahoots of the world. They're always in the chat boxes. They're turning the camera so that the students can see the classroom if there's face-to-face kids in there, so that they can just be a part of the experience. And then myself as a counselor, because I don't want to speak the whole time, what I'm doing and how I'm connecting with my parents, I'm making all kind of videos. Jason knows I'm all about the videos. So I'm making guidance lesson videos that I can stream out and send out to our parent teacher organization groups, because they have that connection with their little Facebook groups with our parents. My principal's sending it out in emails. My teachers are sending it out in emails. And then whenever I'm doing my guidance lessons, I'm never forgetting about our virtual kids. I'm also extending my link or my Zoom times with those virtual kids. And so I'm connecting and they can see me, and I can show y'all in a little bit, actually see me actually while I'm doing the lesson, like with Google Slides and things of those natures. Because what I have found is that when we're doing these lessons and our teachers, they get really sad about it. Like even in the chat, like the kids are saying, like, I really miss you. Like, I really miss school. I really wish that I could be there. And so just like I said, just being consistent with some of those steps, and definitely doing the check-in with parents, because that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that parents are comfortable. Parents know the importance of what's happening, in your classroom or in your learning or what's happening on campus. And one more thing, just making it exciting too, because we'll stick to instruction, and instruction is super, super important. But in order to keep the morale high, especially with those virtual learners in your virtual community, you want to make sure that you're doing things to help still make them a part of your, physical school environment. So I'll say, like, when we do awards, we do it big. We do Zoom, we do the background, and parents are still able, they can't come to campus, but they're still able to see their kids walk across the stream with the certificate, and they're excited. So we're doing things like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. I love it. Richard, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now to help engage students that's working.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Ashley, I want to thank you for that insight. That is fantastic what you're doing there. And I'm sure that all of our 697 people out there have so many ideas as well. And I think what this whole thing is about is to get ideas from all of us. You know, I would never call myself an expert in anything because the more I learn, the less I know, right? So I work with and have the honor to work with our at-risk students in middle school and high school and working in inner city Flint, Michigan. And just want to do a shout out to my team Gear Up and those at the Broom Center. We are right in the thick of the inner city, and we have been online utilizing online techniques for individualized learning even before COVID happened. So as much as our students may be behind in their classes and their math and English, it's really about then the grit that they have and the resilience. And so as many of you out there, I'm sure, you know, when COVID happened and everybody had to go online, there was a paradigm shift in everybody's thinking. And when you look at what online learning really is and what the standards are to be a brilliant online learner, really is a dichotomy, especially for my students who are at risk. But online is the best thing ever and it's the worst thing. It's the tale of two cities, right? And then how do you measure success? So to your question, how does one, you know, create excitement? How do we do this? And it really is relationship before rules equals rejoicing, right? So relationship before rules equals rejoicing. But the opposite is rules before relationship equals rebellion.
Okay.
And so, right. So that's been around. The rules before relationship equals rebellion. And so the first thing to do is relationship, which really, you know, is, I'm not here to sell WhyTry, but I love WhyTry. That relationship is key, as we all know. And I'm sure everybody out there can put some stuff, you know, in the chat box there of these amazing quotes that, you know, they sound like cliches, but they're really true. If you don't have a relationship with the students prior to COVID, it is going to be so much more difficult to get them to be engaged. And then what is engaged? You know, Slechy has the rebellion at the bottom, retreatism, the ritual compliance, the strategic compliance, and then engagement. So right now, when you talk about exemplary practice, we are in exemplary survival mode, right? It's exemplary, just trying to survive through this COVID because our students are alone. They can't come into school. Everybody out there knows that, did our students even have the technology to go online? Did they have the support? If students are alone in the house without parents because parents have to work, right? So that empathy that you spoke about, Ashley, is so imperative to have. So I spoke to one of my awesome students yesterday in 7th grade, and she accidentally, somehow, the computer screen broke. Don't know how it happened, but the screen broke, right? And I'm like, okay, how do we get this? We're going to get you another computer. But what else can we do, right? We need to go from victim to victor. We need to go from, we're all in this together. We need to look at, how do we measure success during this crisis? We are literally, ladies and gentlemen, not to be dramatic, but I am dramatic, is we are in a warfare against something we know nothing about. And we don't know how long this is going to go. And so things have to change. Our curriculum is not going to be the same. So I think the teachers and administrators need so much empathy. You know, it's not just about the student. We need to have empathy for our teachers, our parents, our administrators, because we all have been set to a different world that we knew nothing about prior to this. So how do we engage? You're right, Ashley, and Corey's going to have some amazing things to say as well. It's about relationship, and it's also about your expectation. If we're calling these kids saying, you didn't get this done, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z, that's the rule before, right? My own son got in trouble because he wasn't in his uniform online. right? So we need to really look at, schools dominantly, if we look at how schools started, most schools, to be quite blunt and honest, spoke about this, operate in a punitive level. If you don't do X, Y is going to happen. So you operate out of fear. You can't go out to recess. You can't do this. You can't do this. Now everything has to be respected to the respect level. If we want engagement as opposed to just compliance, rebellion, how are we going to do that during this? And I think we need to look at our own curriculum. What are we really going to expect? What is feasible? And how can we support the whole family unit? So there's just a few ideas. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great insight. That sets a nice foundation. Corey, anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, Ashley and Richard are practitioners right now. I've been out of the schools now for just over a year, and I already feel like I'm like way behind the 8 ball on it, right? Like things totally changed in 1 year. But I really love what they said, because I know as an administrator, my focus would want to be on finding ways to support my teachers and boost morale and show empathy, because ultimately they are the ones, my educators in my buildings are the ones who are going to be making huge differences with these kids and be working with them hand in hand. And, we've become, before COVID, we've become more and more expert at understanding what highly effective instructional strategies look like. And a lot of teachers have become seasoned and really good at doing it, but then the carpet's pulled out from under our legs, and you have to go virtual, which then even your best teachers might just be like, or educators might be like, I have no idea what I'm doing in a virtual setting. And so that's a real morale crusher, because as educators, we understand the value of what we're trying to do. And when we can't do it at a highly effective manner that we're used to doing, man, it hits home really hard. And so then it starts to affect our own morale a lot. But I think we're catching up. And I think one of the best things that any educator can do is do exactly this in terms of tuning into webinars and looking and bringing in ideas from other people, because we will catch up. I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, right? And we will figure out what is the best way to do things virtually, and things are definitely getting better. And we're going to talk about a lot of those strategies, I think, the rest of this webinar. But I think the stuff that's really challenging now is that, engagement, when you think of classroom management, a lot of people might think classroom management is about managing behaviors, but classroom management is about creating engagement with your students and increasing engagement. And so the tough part about virtual learning is that all of your classroom management techniques, they're like way flipped on their head in a virtual setting. You do not have as much control as you did before. And so it becomes a major challenge. So one of the best things any educator can do is exactly what Ashley and Richard referred to, and that is showing empathy and building relationships with these kids, because that is what you have to rely on. And in order to do that, an educator has to have energy and be excited and be happy. And so the best thing an administrator can do for the educators they're working with is find ways of boosting that in their own lives. So,
Awesome. Yeah. Great insight. Well, let's jump right in. That sets I think the foundation really nicely to jump right in. Let's start sharing some ideas, sharing some strategies, tips, tools, whatever you got. And maybe we'll just kind of go in the same order we did the last question on. But what I wanted to throw out to you is this. We get a lot of feedback from educators. So we're training and working with educators throughout the country. And one of the most common pieces of feedback that we're getting right now during the pandemic is, I have a group of kids that I can get to log in fairly regularly, but I have others that I can't even get to log in the first time. And so what I wanted to throw out to you was that question. What are some tips and strategies that you've used to try to help kids get over that initial hurdle of just logging in and engaging for the first time, if they've been resistant or distracted to being able to do that? Let's start with Ashley. We'll go Ashley, then Richard, then Corey.
I know I work with elementary, but one of the things that I would completely, advise, because I've been able to actually get more of my parents involved and invested when they're virtually, is just that initial phone call. Like just having an intimate phone call and really talking to the parent about the significance of why the video needs to be shown. And just like it goes back to what Richard said, that relationship building, like, is there something wrong? I noticed, your child just doesn't like to show the video, but I really want to see them. I really want to, create that experience. I really feel, and I'll just be, raw with y'all, like everybody's stress level is just so high and it's just so overwhelmed. And I think sometimes when the video may not be shown, it's because baby girl is riding in the car, going to the next place, which in all due respect, mom is like, doesn't want you to see that, but people are juggling with the best that they can. So I think, and I feel, like I said, I am not a full perfection, expert, but I would say building the relationship with the parent and explaining the significance. If you're in the car, mama, that's okay. Hey, you're here, and that's all that matters to me. Or is there a time, or what time works best for you that I could actually have some one-on-one, with your child, so I can see he or her, face, and just to make sure that they're okay and that they're understanding the lesson and understanding the information. I really feel like educators, we have to put ourselves out there. We have to do a little bit more. I feel like we have been called to do a little bit more. We have to understand that parents, they're not on the same playing field as teachers. They're just not. And I think sometimes us as educators, we end up looking at some of our parents like, well, they should be on here. It is 8:15, like, and things of that nature. But we don't understand what the community is going through right now. And sometimes people don't have jobs. Sometimes people are trying to have, let's just be honest. I know a lot of people with 4 kids, 2 are in high school trying to do their virtual stuff. One's in pre-K, you're trying to help him or her. So it's a lot of things going on. So it goes back, make the phone call. If the video is not on that first time, it's okay. But maybe take a step forward to have a conversation about, why is the video so important? That's number one. And then 2, just express yourself. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm getting that feedback, because I really don't know. I'm just going to make up the name. I really don't know if Sam's really understanding the material, and I want Sam to be a part of this experience. When people feel like they're feeling safe, they're loved, and they're belong, they're going to turn on the video. They're going to know and feel at ease, like it's okay. And so you want to make sure that you're doing things of that nature. And then I don't know, like, I see a lot of people from different states. I know some districts are completely virtual, and then some are having those virtual face-to-face with that option from going to virtual to face-to-face. Maybe, when it's hard to do the whole face-to-face and they can't do it, maybe you're addressing some underlying problems, like, well, I really do want my child in school, I just don't know how to do that. So again, it just goes back to the beginning when Jason first laid that question, and Richard hit it on the nail. You have to have that relationship. You have to explain the significance of virtual, and you have to cut them some slack. Find out some tights and looses with your expectations, and be flexible, with the whole virtual, because it's new to you and it's new to them. And so I will say, like, mental check yourself first and make sure that you're okay and the things that you're comfortable with and how it comes across, and then explain to the parent.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Great insight. Richard.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you, Corey. Thank you, Ashley, with the insight. And we are only as smart as who's in this room, and we have 761 people. And when you look at this chat, these are some amazing insights, because everyone who's out there could be on this here sharing. So, some things about technology. Not every one of our students have the technology. We get them the technology. They may have internet, but the internet might not be fast. And so that is a challenge. And then we have to then go to the concept that students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And just a little history. That was Theodore Roosevelt who actually said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So we bring it into students. The concept, and somebody put that in there about, how do you go out to get that missing person, the missing sheep who's not on there? And what we do here is we go distance apart with masks to their homes. We hunt them down. I say to my high school students, I will hunt you down because you are worth it. You are so worth it. And there's no judging. See, as soon as a student thinks you're going to judge them and they're in trouble, they will shut down even more, right? And when you speak about learned helplessness in society and being in your own home and you're failing, at one point, a student's going to say, I quit. Why try? I'm so far behind. So I think it has to also go to what are our administrators, what are our teachers doing about curriculum, and how are we going to measure success? If a student doesn't have a computer, how can we get them, a project-based learning? Do the Who Am I project, write an autobiography, do it in a rap, do it in a song, do it in art. Give them something they can do on their own, right? That then you can then take the standards and give them something. Again, we have to always remember right now, we are in survival mode. It is not the same. We can't judge ourselves on the same, but we can judge ourselves of what did we do to empower them during a crisis, right? Christmas is coming up. That's the best of times. It's also the worst of times for many families, right? And so what are we doing to empower that, right? And through these holiday concepts. I mean, most schools shut down the second week of December anyway for parties, and you don't come back here. And we're going to be doing that with COVID, so again, I'm just reading all these amazing concepts on the side, but we have to be aware of the socioeconomics of our students, of the culture and climate within the home, and how do we get through this crisis with the least amount of carnage of our education, right? So dominantly education, 100%. You got your top 20, your bottom 20, you teach to the 60, right? I deal mainly with the bottom 20 and a few in the top 20. But what's going to happen, my prediction, is that bottom 20 is going to go up to 30, 40, 50, because a lot in the middle are going down because they don't have the support that they need. Your top 20 is going to go up to the top 10. And we as a nation have to look at what are we going to do about education, right? What are we going to do? How are we going to measure success? How do we empower the student who is unmotivated to be engaged? Well, for me personally, as Mr. T with my students, I'm trying to just get through this with them and journey with them without any judging and getting down on them because they didn't get their work done. It's how are you doing? How is life? It's that relationship. And again, I'm trying to show them that somebody cares, right? The Broom Center in Flint, they do everything they can to support the whole family, because that's what this is about, the whole family. So again, I know I'm repeating what everybody else is saying out there, but it's building trust, and it's really, where are we going to go from here when this is done? Because education will never be the same. We also have to understand that how many didn't choose this mode of education? See, when the seat time waiver came out in Michigan, you had to apply, fill out a form, go through a test to even get online classes. Overnight, everybody gets online classes, even though time management, self-discipline, all of those were obstacles that you had to overcome to even get in and online. Now everybody's online. So again, to just meet our people where they are at, to empower them and to challenge them and say, we're in this together. I'm as upset about this as you are. How can I help you? How can I meet you where you're at? And if that's in a parking lot, in a car, and you stay 6 feet, how you doing? Here's a gift card to McDonald's. Here's a book. Let's talk about this. We have to keep that connection. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. Corey, before I have you respond, I've worked with Ashley enough to know I can read her face. Ashley, I think you have something you want to kind of respond with or add.
Yes, I was burdened inside. It's like the counter. I'm like looking at this, and I was like, we got to say something to it because I can't scroll back up. But someone asked the question with Richard saying all of this, and myself, they asked something along the lines of basically, how do you get other teachers to support the value in the whole to building relationships and really do these things that are necessary. And I'm going to say this because this is my 13th year in education. You can't make someone love someone. You can't make someone care about someone. But what you can do is be the sunshine and be the advocate for your school. So everyone has a different threshold. There's probably 10 or 15 of all of you 700 people that may feel like, you know what, Richard, that's just not my personality, but that sounds so good. But that's a little bit too much for me. And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of an educator. It doesn't mean that you don't care about students. Maybe, I'm going to be honest, you have a lot on your plate right now. Maybe your spouse lost their job, or you've had, some people that have died, with COVID. So this sounds so wonderful, but I'm having a hard time even keeping myself together.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
with that being said, I really empower you, and especially my administrators, to find the sunshines in your building and let someone else carry that burden. Ask for help. I don't even know what to say. I feel uncomfortable, speaking to this parent this way. Get with your partner, get with your grade level team and see, hey, can you make this phone call with me? Can you help tell this parent, what I'm trying to express? Don't suffer in silence. So I just wanted to put it out there because I know as educators, we always talk about that, right? And it sometimes sounds redundant. Build a relationship. But let's just be honest. Some of our buckets are real low, and we're not able to do that at that capacity. So just like what Richard said, like, I'll hunt you down, find your hunters. Like, I'm pretty sure you have like 2 or 3 people that are like, okay, let's do it, and that will get into the grit and do it and help you in any way possible. So sorry, just had to put that.
So Ashley, I totally concur. And that's why you have a team, right? Like in my team, we have so many different personalities, but we make one concept, right? And I think the biggest challenge, if I can just put this out there, Corey, is the teachers are no longer the sage on the stage, right? So there's this great saying, the sage on the stage or the guide on the side, right? And that's hard. I mean, that was hard for me as here's my classroom, here's what I'm doing. But now I have to be the guide on the side going through this. So it's about the paradigm shift and then that resilience.
Thank you. Great insights. Corey, give us some of your strategies.
Well, it's obviously a tough question, but the best thing about going third is I can just say, oh yeah, Ashley and Richard, what they said, that was great. Which is exactly what I'm going to say. WhyTry actually surveyed a ton of educators on this. We gathered a lot of responses. I read through all of the responses prior to this, and I have to say, a lot of responses echo exactly what Ashley and Richard said, just dedicated professionals going out and working with parents, seeking them out however they have to do it to make it happen and making contact with them. And I think that just speaks to, educators across the country and their determination and what they're trying to do. I really love what Ashley said regarding, what about my colleagues that kind of kick against that idea and acknowledging, they may be going through stuff and empathizing that way. So great insight there. I will say, more importantly than finding the way to make contact is what is the message when you make contact. And Ashley and Richard both did a great job giving out this idea that the message when you make contact is one of, hey, I miss you. I love to see you. I want to see you. We have great stuff going on here. Anything I can do to help you make it to my class or make it to my school or my appointment, whatever, I would love to do it. If there's something I can get in your hands so that you can do it on the side, what can I give you? What's more important is what is the message when you do make that contact? Because I think you all know the answer is we've got to make contact somehow. the bigger question is, what do I say when I do make contact? And when you do make contact, actually what this really makes me think of is in our training, in one of our trainings, we highlight an educator from North Carolina, and he has a statement that I absolutely love. And his statement is this: his philosophy is, the students have to buy into me first before I can ever deliver any sort of content to them. And I love that attitude. I agree with it 100%. You've got to get those students to think, do you know what? This person, I buy into this person. This person cares about me, or he's got something cool to share with me. I want to log on. So I really believe that's what it comes down to. And there's lots of strategies that are coming in the chat window that came in this survey. I'm sure we'll be pushing out the answers, but inviting them personally to come and be a part of virtual field trips or guest speakers or game parties, celebrations, contests, all of these different things you could do in a virtual setting. Giving them a special invitation could be a great way to get them to tune in for the first time if they've been completely resistant to doing so.
That's
Awesome.
right. Corey, if I could just add, HOTEP speaks about you can't teach them until you reach them, which is exactly what you were saying there as well. And then looking on the side, there's so many of our professionals and constituents out there. It's about what Ashley said is, how can I give when my tank is empty, right? It really is this resilience. And if I can just put this out there, it's about, WhyTry put out a resilience guide for parents. It's beyond just parents. This is for all of us. And so I put a link out there that I took that and put it into a s'more concept so it was linear, so I can send it to my parents on their phone and they scroll through it. So that resilience guide gives so many fantastic insights and techniques. If I can just put a shout out there, Jason, for that.
Absolutely. Love it. I'm going to type it in. We'll put it up at the end as well. Oh, Corey put it in, resilienceguide.org, another place to grab that. Corey, I want to kind of continue some of the stuff you talked about. Let's share some strategies for engagement now. We've been talking about a little bit about trying to get over that hurdle of getting kids to engage. Let's talk about specific tips and strategies for helping improve or kind of come up with some creative engagement when we have them there. We've addressed it a little bit, but I don't mind either if you talk a little bit about cameras. I think that's a significant thing because I think in this kind of ideal world, every kid has a camera on, but the reality is Richard addressed it, I think, pretty accurately, or well, Ashley did as well. They may be in a situation where they're embarrassed to turn their camera on, or there may be distractions going on in the background that they don't want visible. And so there's a certain amount of sensitivity that we need to maintain with that. And so I think creativity around engagement and kind of choice in engagement is really critical. And so maybe let's change the order up just a little bit. Let's go Corey, Ashley, Richard, and see if we can have you share some tips and ideas around that concept of kind of creative engagement with them once we have them.
Yeah, and I'm going to lean on the educators that we've worked with in the last couple of weeks, since they're the ones that have been out there working a lot. So, Jason, I sent you some slides. This is probably a good time. These are some of the results from some working with some educators that just clever things they do to get kids to participate and engage and to turn their camera on. So the first slide there is going to be just a list of additional programs that teachers have tapped into to create engagement when they're in an online setting. And you can see a bunch of those there. I am familiar with a good number of those. Some of them I've never used before and I don't know a lot about. Some of them are paid for products and hopefully your organization can somehow support that. And some of them aren't. But you can see there a list of different ones that have been used by some of our WhyTry users and people who have interacted with us in our trainings and what we do. So some good things there, Kahoot and Class Dojo have been around for a long, long time and were used long before COVID. But I think some of these other ones have definitely gained momentum as out of necessity. But lots of different clever ways, I think, to engage your students, right? And to create new ways of getting them to respond. If you go to the next slide, Jason, we also have looked at different ideas for turning on the camera, of just being, you know, clever and enticing them. And some of these are great for elementary, some are great for secondary. I don't know that I'm going to go through and read all of those to you word for word. You guys can probably do that in the chat window, but there's some really good ones in there that it's really just about creating creative ways for students to express themselves where they'll want to express themselves. And in some cases, even turn on their camera to show how they're doing it, right? How they're participating, or how they're creating a song, or creating their own tennis shoe, or, you know, showing their favorite or funniest TikTok, or things like that, right? So lots of great ideas to get students to turn on the camera if you're having a hard time with that. I am really interested, though, in hearing from Ashley and Richard some things that people they've been working with, as well as themselves, what they've done to engage their students in the moment in virtual settings.
Awesome. Before I do, a couple people asked, so if you were trying to grab a picture with your camera, we're going to send a link out of this, but if you were trying to grab a picture with your camera, your phone pulled out, you can snap that right now, screenshot that. I'll pull up the next page real quick if you want to grab that as well. But we're going to send out a recording of this also that usually goes out by the weekend. You can grab that also. Ashley, let's hear from you next. So I've been kind of an admirer from afar. Ashley does just some incredible virtual work with both live and pre-recorded stuff. And I was really excited to be able to invite her to be on here and share some of that, because I think you use the tools that you have access to really effectively. So Ashley, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Okay, so I was like trying to figure out where the best way to start as I'm moving my computer. I probably sound. So I'll show you some visuals. So as far as me as a counselor, I do give guidance lessons, and so I do Zoom. I do use Zoom, and it is live, and the virtual kids can see me. But one of the things that I want to show you all, I can share, right, Jason?
Yep, you should be able to.
Okay. All righty. Here we go. Okay. So one of the things, the best program that I use that I adore is Loom. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with this, but like I'll just play a couple of seconds. Like before I actually do a lesson, I actually have my Google Slides up, or if I'm using a certain device, I'll have two devices. But Loom actually allows you to be in picture. You can record, but sometimes I just want the kids, because Zoom is kind of tricky. Just like now when I'm sharing the document, like I can't see y'all at the same time that I'm trying to see the screen, which is normal for kids. Loom actually allows you to be like in the middle. So I'll just play like just only a couple of seconds. So before I get started, like we said with Richard, you just gotta have some fun. So like I'll play some Michael Jackson and get all funky. And this is actually a kindergarten lesson. And then as you see, as we go through the lesson, I use short videos, like maybe, I don't know if it's math or, something related, or, some fun times in your classes. Maybe you can show some short clips. So I'll make sure that I'm showing a short clip, but as you see, they can always see my face. So I love using Loom. You don't have to record every single, you can just keep it open and move. And if you have questions, you can email me. Please email me and I'll show you how to do it. You can just move to where it says start recording off to another window, or minimize it and just keep this open. Another thing that that I like to do is the wheel of names. So I do this a lot, like with bingo or name calling or color calling or whatever it is, y'all. You can put pictures in here, you can put names in here. The kids love it because it's like, woo! So the focus is not just on the game, it's just another virtual piece for the kids to see and get excited about. So, and this is free and you can save them, so which is awesome. Another thing that I use that's social emotional, because social emotional learning is really, really big in the States now, and it's moving across all districts, is having like a kindness wall. Now, this is my old one, but this is an opportunity, and as you see, it's old because it shows me pregnant, sorry, y'all. but as you can see, there are just things that the kids can use at any time just to feel good about themselves. So you can put images there. This is Padlet, Padlet, and I believe that Corey had that on his list too. But it has things like "Don't give up, you got this, you are the bomb.com." So think how inspiring that is to be able to have access to and read all the time if a kid is feeling overwhelmed. Another idea is I have my own counselor corner that Jason really loves. I have some virtual rooms for some of my kids, actually for my face-to-face kids too. So sometimes in the class, because I don't go into classrooms to do my guidance lessons like I do individually, I am the only counselor out of 1,000 students. And so all of my kids, I see every single classroom. I see every single student at the beginning of the year. But I'm not able to do that. So I had to do it all through Zoom. And then when kids are needing to see me for services, sometimes they're coming to my office, or sometimes if we meet on Zoom, or maybe they just need cool down, I can't have them to touch things. So I have my virtual calming bear den that has lots of different activities for them to use. Like I know the little kids, and I'm pretty sure the big kids, we could all benefit from this, y'all. They can have fun just exploring like the aquarium, just looking at fish and just taking your mind off of things. And it has like some doodling and kinetic sand and all of that. And then I have a growth mindset room. I'm pretty sure you educators have seen the Bitmoji craze. It has read aloud books. So maybe if a kid is feeling overwhelmed, like I can't do this Zoom is too much, or this work is too much. It's just a relaxing room to be uplifted. And so these books are, these type of texts are focused on motivation. And then last but not least, Jason knows I'm a music lover. So this is the Disco Miss Wright, DJ Ash Bash on the ones and twos. That is my DJ name. I kid you not. When we have our school parties, but these are brain breaks, and our kids love them, y'all, like literally, because these are things that they can do even in the classroom. Like if you say, everybody stop, let's just do a brain break, and you have your virtual learners. Well, if you're sharing the screen, they can be at home, rocking it as well. And it's fun and it's engaging and it's kinesthetic too. And then last but not least, like I told y'all, like on my Twitter, I tweet a lot. I love having that parental involvement. So I want my parents to feel a part of like our awards. We still do our awards. So like I said, Find Your Sunshine, this is Miss Cuccinata. So I'll play a little bit. Like we are, pretty goofy. So we'll have this going on in the beginning. And then of course, at the end, all of the kids get to do like a little brain break. So I use, I'll stop sharing. There we go. So those are just kind of some of the things that I'm always using. I do have like my check-ins, just like I said, a variety of all those websites. I still do Kahoot and all those things. And all the virtual kids, they still love it because they still have access to it, and we're all doing it at the same time. So
Awesome. Hey, real quick, Ashley, a couple people have asked, where could somebody go to set up one of those calming corners?
ooh, yes. Okay. Facebook, I'll type it in the chat, Bitmoji craze for educators. And I think they are up to that. I am so empowered by them. I think they're up to like 7,000 people. And so they have tons of rooms, and I will tell y'all, it will be overwhelming. I would just tell you to zoom in on the one and make a copy. That's the beautiful thing about Google, and just make sure that the links work. So don't feel like, oh, I just got to decorate this room. It's got to be this way. I would actually empower you guys right now. Find a calm room and just change the name and just stick your Bitmoji on it. And I want to say like call it a day, but at least you have something to get them started. And then as the year goes on, maybe in the spring semester, you can start to create and mold your own and design. Because that's another thing, Jason. Some of them, our teachers here was just like, I don't have time for all that, making a whole virtual room. And I said, just make a copy and just switch it out. And it's yours. And then just put your character in there. And that'd be awesome.
Awesome. And we're going to put all of our panelists, they've all been generous enough to be willing to share their email addresses. We're going to put all those up at the end. So if you have a question about a specific thing that they shared, just stay tuned, and we'll put their contact info up at the end, and you can reach out and ask directly. Richard, tell us a little bit about some of the strategies, things you're doing around engagement.
Yes, thank you. And actually, I want to go to your school, by the way, that's fantastic. And so what I want to talk about is for all our people out there, we have, over 700 that don't have the opportunity to utilize that technology that you have, because that's many of our people. So I just want to make sure that, this is the top of the pyramid. A lot of my kids, we're on Maslow's bottom of the triangle, right? They don't even use the computer because of X, Y, and Z. So we're talking on the phone, and one of our constituents had spoken about, how do you teach over the phone? So even Mrs. Redmond and she connects with these kids almost every day, 2 times a week, whatever we can get a hold of them. And it's very difficult. The first thing is we have to go back to the concept. We are in crisis. So all of this is new. And again, this thread on the side, I think, is a mile long, but it is brilliant. So what are some concepts that I try to do with our engagement? One is, I grew up on one level that it's always empowerment. It's the word yet. I don't know this yet. We speak about growth mindset, and the growth mindset really is where we're at right now. It's resilience, it's grit within what we're doing. And depending on who the student is, and all your 4.0 students may not still be 4.0 because they're used to a different type. Some of my students who are on the bot, they're raising up because they have that grit. So as my uncle says, make a shoe. What do you mean make a shoe? And I'm like, what are you talking about, make a shoe? It's try to do something. So if my student can't do this, this, and that, well, what can you do? We need to go to what are their gifts? What can they present? What can they work on? Because we have to keep the brain working educationally. So one strategy is, what would you like to do? What focus do you want to work on? English, science, social, man, you tell me what you want to work on. And that's where we're going to start. Now, this isn't going to work for everybody. Again, I work with alternative ed. Out of all of our students, I'd say 80% were kicked out of a school, right? And we know what happens when a student is expelled from a school, the reality of dropout. And they are all being, in one way or another, into their school in their own way. So another person that talked about is mindfulness. Miss Kelly brought mindfulness into our program that we work with kids who are adjudicated right out of jail, doing the breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. That's for all of us. If we could just teach that alone to our parents, our administrators, our teachers, that then goes to less stress, right? And the other concept, like I said, is, your personality project. Let's take a personality test. Now, again, you can do it different all the way through because it's fun to take these tests and look at them. And here's my personality, X, Y, and Z. And then the Who Am I project, like we said before, from birth to now, who are you? I put a link in there, and I know that Jason's going to put a link in there. I made a plethora of purposeful pontifications, if you will, of all these different things that I've used to just put together. So again, I always want to say, what about the family? What about the student that does not have? Because they do not want to have that video on their home because it is chaos. It is insanity from their level, and they are embarrassed. So even talking on the phone sometimes is difficult. So I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying that I'm never going to stop. In Latin, dum spiro spero. Everybody say that. Dum spiro spero. That means while I breathe, I hope. While I breathe, I hope. And that's my ethos right now. While I breathe, I hope. And as my dad, my hero, says every day, it's about hope. And that's where we're at now. So as I breathe, I hope. And it's just connection with our students to take them where they're at, to understand. How do you understand poverty, as Ruby Payne says? And that's not just money. That is everything that we're dealing with.
I love it. Richard, I'm a little bit, I was wondering if you could just maybe briefly speak, because we're getting close to being out of time, but I wanted to follow up on the Who Are You projects. One of the things that I think is critical, we talk a lot about voice and choice. but I think we've had to get really creative in how we allow kids to respond to assignments throughout this pandemic. Traditionally we would have a written response as like our classic go-to. What I'm just curious, because I can guarantee that you've had some creative responses in the Who Are You? What are some of the creative ways you've allowed students to respond to that project?
Right. So first is, what is the criterion? The only criterion is tell us what you want to say. Now, remember, I'm working with at-risk kids, adjudicated kids. There's some things they do not want to share. But a lot of this is cathartic, and they literally work on this so much that you're in tears by the end of this presentation, which is really a senior exit interview theory that we're going all the way down to grade school. So within it is just basically, your name, where were you born, what do you consider family, put some pictures in there, what are your hobbies, what are your future plans, and always end with the cool quote, right? So I've had raps, people do rap, people did a dance, right? We use Google Slides, they write it. One of them didn't want to use any technology, so she did it old school and just made a little poster. So again, the amazing, what our students teach us, I'm humbled every day, and so it's, you tell me how you want to do this. Show me, tell me, and let's work it out. And, like any brilliant educational system, and as Dr. Adam Hartley speaks about, we need to do, what are those benchmarks along the way? You can get a benchmark without turning to chapter 2. We have to be unique. And this is a great opportunity. What's happening now is either an opportunity or a threat to education, right? It's an opportunity or a threat. And those that will look at it as a threat, it will become bigger than it is, and it will crush that person, an educator and kid. But if we look at this as an opportunity to change the way we look at things, Wayne Dyer, if we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. We need to empower our students to be the leaders through this. So there's just a few, Jason.
I love it. Thank you. And I love, it's kind of interesting right now, like the hope piece is so critical that you described. And I love how you're talking about kind of changing our perspective to our challenges. That's the essence of resilience. When you dig into resilience, resilience isn't necessarily the elimination of challenge or adversity, because a lot of those are so complex, we can't remove those. Resilience is about changing our perspective and our relationship to that challenge. And that's where all of this stuff really becomes critical. There's a lot of information right now that's being put out around creating trauma-informed virtual classrooms, and that concept of flexibility and choice and empowering students is really critical to that as well. We're just about out of time. I don't mind if we go a couple minutes over, but what I wanted to just throw out, panelists, we've covered a lot. Anything that you didn't mention or anything that came to mind that you wanted to make sure that you mentioned before I throw out to you my last question, which will be one I haven't even presented to you before, but I think it'll be an easy one to answer. So parting thoughts from our panelists. Anything you want to add? Let's go, Ashley, Richard, Corey.
I'll just say, give yourself grace, be compassionate with yourself. I know that we talked a lot about a lot of great ideas, right? And so just know that if one idea may not work, or maybe you get so pumped up and you're like, woo, Ashley, let's rock it. And then you try it with that one student and it fails, don't give up, because it will happen. It's inevitable. I think that's what we've learned about 2020. It's all about vision and seeing things clearly. It's going to happen. But like Richard said, that resilience piece that comes, and I've written down every quote that he said. I'm like, I'm about to preach today. But
come on now.
Love it. I'm just like, just be inspired and don't forget your why. And if it is just taking it back to stop yourself, if you're starting to get upset and starting to get frustrated, and when you're speaking to that kid, bring it back home to why you became an educator. How can I help you? What would you like to talk about today, honey? We'll talk about that later. We'll do math, a little bit later. Let's talk about what you want to talk about. Just that connection piece, and just hold on. Just hold on. Don't give up. And if you need help, like I said before, find somebody, find some sunshine, you know, somebody that can support you.
I love it. Find some sunshine. Richard.
Ashley, I love that sunshine. Come on now. So my sister said to me years ago, and I want to be her when I grow up, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. And ladies and gentlemen, my team, my people out there, we, first of all, have to fill ourselves, like we spoke about, because we can't be the world to someone else if we can't be our own world. And so it really has to go to that introspection. But also, one phone call, one letter, old school postcards to your kids would go very, very far. Old school, right? And so to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. If we have that, and then doom spero, while I breathe, I hope, that's how we're going to get through this. And we're going to only do it together and connect as we are here. Thank you. Corey.
I had muted myself. The only thing I'd end with is, you know, on the other side of this, we're going to come out stronger. Education is going to be improved, in my opinion. There's going to be some hard things to work through and answer with regards to the long-term effect of this. But ultimately, because of what's happened, I believe that education will improve because it's causing us to rethink some things and to progress faster than perhaps we would have. But in the meantime, just take care of each other, take care of your students, and take care of each other, because that's really all we need to focus on right now. And then after it's done, we'll change and catch up. So that's what I have to say.
Love it. Thank you. All right. Final question. This is the one I like to end on, because we need to focus on this. This matters. Resilience and hope are connected, and we have to be resilient ourselves. And if we can't see the things that are giving us hope, then our resilience can suffer. So my final question for you all is, what's giving you hope right now? Let's go Richard, Corey, and then we'll end with Ashley. And just tell me one thing that's giving you hope right now, and then we'll wrap it up. Richard, what's giving you hope?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, first of all, it's been an honor to be part of this. And I can tell you one thing. I'm on a national board of the National Alternative Education Association for all educators around the nation and world for our at-risk kids. Right now, every student is at risk. Every student is at risk, even more than we've ever been. So seeing over 700 people come together and share their resources, that gives me hope. Because sometimes we can all be in our own silos, in our own trenches, trying to do what we can do with our students and families, but to know you're not alone. That gives me hope right now.
Man, love it. Corey.
This morning, as I was driving somewhere, I saw two kids walking to school, and I got a little sentimental and thought, gosh, I love kids walking to school. They're just excited about the day. And I was excited to see that they were going to school. And a year from now, kids will be going to school, as well as 2 years from now and 3 years from now. And I'm glad to be a part of it. So.
Ashley, what's giving you hope?
I'm trying not to cry. I've gotten all emotional listening to y'all, but like Richard said, it's just hard. And what keeps my energy, and I smile, these are like tears of joy. It's just because you just don't know the impact that you have on kids regardless of their situation. So my hope is, of course, like my faith, because it aligns with my life purpose. My life purpose is to serve and to love others, period. Unconditional positive regard all the time, and do it to the best of my ability. And I'll say an example, because you never know who's watching. I came in a little tired today, and I did my little morning guidance lesson and gave as much pump as I could, but I was struggling, but I still gave it my all. And we had a benchmark today, and I know we got to go, but I'll leave you with this, because you never know. Like I told you, we have 1,000 kids here. I had a teacher emailed me, because we do our character trait, grit, and I do signs with my character trait. So I go, grit. And so they're taking a hardcore benchmark in 3rd grade, and the little girl looks at her teacher and she goes, ugh. and she sighs because it's so hard. And her teacher looked at her, winked at her, and went like this. And the little girl goes and keeps working. So it's just those things right there, you know, like the power of my lessons, the power of my words makes a huge impact. It has trickled onto the teachers, therefore it trickles onto the kids. So that's just my hope, to just keep serving and keep loving.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll share too what's giving me hope. This story will start off a little bit sad. I promise there's a happy end to it. We had a rough weekend. My son, my second oldest son, broke his collarbone playing in his first ever high school basketball game. And it was kind of a tragic end to the evening. We got home. It was really hard. He was heartbroken, devastated. And we have had teachers, administrators, and friends all reach out virtually because we don't do stuff in person quite like we did before. And the thing that's given me hope, I got emotional this weekend over it. There's still really, really decent humans out there. And like the people that get into this world that we're all part of, educators, we do this because we want to help kids. We all have that common desire, that common love to try to help kids. And that's really, really important. That gives me hope for humanity, hope for the huge future, hope for our communities. We're going to come out stronger. And now you're going to get me all emotional, Ashley. I blame you for this. Anyway, let's go ahead and finish up. Huge thank you to everybody. Thank you to our panelists. Give them a big virtual round of applause. And then huge thank you to all of you as educators, therapists, mental health professionals, corrections officers. This is one of the most difficult years we have ever had to do our job. And it's so comforting to know that we're part of this community that's trying to get better, trying to improve, trying to support one another and understand one another. We're dealing with a lot, and you're making a difference in these kids' lives. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for showing up. I'm going to put up a slide here at the end. I'm going to play us out with some of the songs that got sent to us last week. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great week and it's a great month for you. We've almost made it through 2020. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. All right, I'm going to put it up, put some music on. And this will have email addresses too, by the way.